Skinny Hardaway, Southern T, back with another EP. Y'all do your boy a favor. Y'all smash that like button for your boy when you roll on in. We here for a good time, not a long time. Do your boy a favor, whether you here for a good time or a long time. If you could, smash that like button for your boy. I don't know if it's your first time, but if you could, not make it your last time, do your boy a favor. Jab that like button for your boy when you roll on in. Okay, we here with a bit of some breaking news. You know what I mean? We got Emontis Stanionis, right? The current mandatory for Earl Spence Jr. Amongst Stanionis has been the mandatory for Earl Spence Jr. about 2 fights now, right? Amongst Stanionis, he took step aside money for the Jordanis Ugas fight, right? Remember the WBA was doing that WBA college that was doing the WBA was doing that consolidation tournament, right? Where all the fighters had to face off against each other that had straps. And Stanionis had to face off against Butiel, right? And the winner of that fight became the mandatory for Earl Spence. Earl Spence since has fought Jordanis Ugas, right? A lot of people don't know, but Stanionis had to be paid in order for that Jordanis Ugas fight to happen, right? So Stanionis, just like everybody else, he was hearing the rumors and the rumblings. He was aware that Earl Spence and Bud Crawford, were attempting to fight, and Stanionis was, set and ready to take step aside money once again. You know what I mean? To let the undisputed fight go down. But since the news broke yesterday that Bud Crawford would be facing off against David Avanesian instead of facing off against Earl Spence for undisputed, Team Stanionis has spoken, and Team Stanionis has since said that if there is not going to be a Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford fight, then they will be forcing and using their WBA mandatory. So Errol Spence's next fight, you know what I mean, if he's going to stay at 147, will most definitely indeed be Emmanuel Emontis Stanionis. So Stanionis is the guy that's on, the radar for the WBA and Errol Spence right now. Errol Spence would be, you're right, if he's going to stay at the 147 division, right? Errol Spence would have to fight this fight next. The only other option available to where he wouldn't have to fight this fight will be a unification fight, and the only other champion is Terrence Bud Crawford, and Terrence Bud Crawford has stated that he will be fighting David Avanesian. Now, all this is coming in the weights of the Earl Spence and Bud Crawford fight, you know what I mean, following through. I for one, highly doubt it, right, that Earl and Bud will face off anyway, you know what I mean? So I was surprised that David Avanesian, was the chosen opponent, but I'm really not surprised that, this fight didn't happen. While David Avanesian was a surprising opponent, this opponent for Earl Spence, Stanionis isn't really that much of a surprise, especially if you follow, like the rankings and the title scene type thing. Then you kind of knew that this one was coming down the pipe. You know what I mean? But this is a real spill. This is not a drill. Y'all do your boy a favor. Y'all smash that like button for your boy. Whether you're here for a good time or a long time, whether you just dropping through, you know what I mean, trying to catch the news, or rather you go, sit through and drop a comment. Shout out my guy Kerr Rains. Appreciate you. Shout out my guy Ray Buck. Was good, pimp. Y'all could do your boy a favor. Smash that like button for your boy. But yeah, this is not a drill. It must have known this. You know what I mean? His team, they said that they would be forcing the WBA mandatory. So we very well could be looking, if Earl Spence is going to stay at the 147-pound division, right? We very well could be looking at a fight between Earl Spence and the Emontis Stanionis. This is very right, very underwhelming, right? Very lukewarm considering the fight that we thought, right, that we would be getting, the fight that everybody had said, right, that we would be getting with Earl and Bud. This Stanionis fight is a bit of a Debbie Downer, right? But I'm about to read off to you guys the exact quote from the team. This is the quote that Stanionis told. This is the quote that Stanionis, you know what I mean, told. I'm not really sure the name of the vlog was, but I got the quote in front of me. The guy said that he was open to working out a step aside. This is Stanionis' team manager. This who this is. He said he was open to working out a deal to step aside for Spence Crawford fight, but now he intends to enforce his official mandatory position for the WBA. Earl Spence and Stanionis reportedly could be facing off next, as Terrence Crawford is facing David Avenesian. It's claimed that Al Heyman and Stanionis reps have already been in talks. You know what I mean? To say though the fight with Bud Crawford may still be possible. Or you know what I mean? Me personally, pretty much, I'm over the the Bud and Earl fight. I think it's best for all of us. You know what I mean? Just to move on. You know what I mean? For quite some time now, especially over the last like couple months, I've been feeling like this thing has been more, of a burden than a help. You know what I mean, for boxing. So I'm really just glad that we all, you know what I mean. I'm really, just past all this thing. I'm really just past, this whole fight. I'm ready for both of them to move on and go on about their careers. Bud fight David Avenesian. Earl Spence is looking like Earl Spence more than likely is about to fight Stanionis if he decides to stay at 147 for sure. Most definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, right? Team Stanionis is pushing for the is pushing the WBA mandatory. So Earl Spence at worst case scenario is going to have to either fight Stanionis or he's going to have to move up. In the perfect world, right? I like to see him, go up to 154. I feel like at this point there is really no reason for him to be at 147. You know what I mean? Outside again, undisputed and fighting Terrence Crawford. But right now it's looking like that's probably not going to happen. You know what I mean? It look like that's probably not going to happen. So I'm open to Earl Spence fighting. You know what I mean? Stanionis and his team most definitely, have said, publicly that they're going to be pushing, for their official mandatory. They said they were open to the idea, of stepping aside again. Some may know that they had to step aside for the Udanis Ugas fight to happen, right? And Stanionis, being that he's worked with, PBC and Al Heyman for some years now, he said he was open to stepping aside, but he said if an undisputed fight isn't going to happen, then he most definitely want his shot at Earl Spence next. So we should be right, not could be. We should be looking forward. You know what I mean, to Stanionis versus Earl Spence if Earl so decides to stay at the 147-pound division. What's good, Big Tex? Appreciate you sliding through this thing. If y'all could do your boy a favor, smash that like button for your boy when you roll on in. You know what I mean? Type deal. This is real spear. This is not a drill. Emmanuel Stanionis and his team have decided to push forward, with their mandatory. They decided to push forward with their mandatory. They had agreed, they were in line to step aside for undisputed, but since there will be no undisputed fight, they're going to go ahead and they're going to follow through with that mandatory so quickly, right? As soon as the news, dropped that Bud Crawford will be fighting David Avenesian out of left field, you got Team Stanionis, jumping on it saying that we're going to enforce our mandatory, so we very well could be getting Earl Spence versus Stanionis. And just looking at this fight, you know what I mean, on the whole, Stanionis he's a good athlete, right? But I just think Earl Spence's levels above Stanionis. But it is a mandatory, right? Meaning that Earl Spence will have to fight him. Let's put it into perspective, you know what I mean, for a second. Let's really put it into perspective for a second, right? You got Bud Crawford who's facing off against David Avenesian, right? So let's look at it. David Avenesian is considered a voluntary, right? So Bud is facing off against a voluntary, meaning that he chose to fight this person. It wasn't a mandatory, meaning that he didn't have to, right? Earl Spence is now facing off against a mandatory, which means that he had to fight this person unless he fought for unification or, undisputed or whatnot. In his situation, it will be undisputed because only he and Bud Crawford have straps right now, in this division. So Earl Spence was facing a unification or mandatory Bud Crawford was facing a voluntary, right, or a unification. So what Bud did was when he fought David Avenesian, right, when he signed to fight David Avenesian, Bud used his voluntary, right. So that Bud using his voluntary, that struck that struck Earl Spence's mandatory. So now Earl Spence has to face off against his mandatory, right? The thing with this is, right, the thing with Bud using his voluntary is, right, Earl Spence had already stated that he wasn't going to be at 154 for too much longer, right? Bud fought David Avenesian saying that, well, I need a tune-up, right? But in actuality, Bud Crawford would have never needed a tune-up, right, if he had a fought Earl Spence months ago, right after his fight in April. You know, it was loads of time for them to fight. But now we hit a situation where Bud just used his voluntary, right? Bud just used his voluntary, right? We're in that situation where Bud just used his voluntary. So he won't be able to use another voluntary just yet, right? And then next he's going to have to face off a mandatory unless he goes for unification. But Earl Spence will be able to use his voluntary next, right? After this fight, if Earl Spence does decide to stay at welterweight, at this point, we don't really know. If Earl's going to stay or not. But we did see Earl put out that tweet the other day. I mean, we did see Earl put out that tweet yesterday that he said, I've been at 147 my whole career. This isn't fun, you know what I mean? So stay making it be known that, him making 147, isn't the easiest thing for him to do. So who really knows how long that he's going to be down at the 147-pound division. Y'all do your boy a favor, whether y'all here for a good time or a long time. If y'all could smash that like button. I got 17 people in the building. I got 7 likes. Can I get everybody in here to smash that like button? Team Stanionis has stated that they will be forcing their WBA mandatory, right? So that very well could mean we'll be getting Earl Spence versus Stanionis, right? If Earl Spence decides to stay at 147. If not, then all the belts become free, right? And then they start the ring around the rosy at 147. My thing is, right, which I have been saying for a minute, y'all do your boy a favor, 19 people in the building, y'all smash that like button for your boy. If you just rolling on in, glad you could make it. I normally don't go on right now, but I had to drop this tad bit of information when I got it. Didn't want to hold on to it too quick. Team Stanionis had decided that they will be pushing the official mandatory for the WBA belt. So Earl Spence is probably going to have to fight Stanionis if he decides to stay at 47 for his mandatory. Now, as far as the Earl and Bud thing go, as far as the Earl, what's good, Monica? As far as the Earl and Bud thing go, right? I really just think it's time that we move past that because, like, the time frame, if that fight was ever going to happen, the time frame was now. The time frame was after Yordenis Ugas, right? Because Earl had already said that he'll probably be going up to 54, and then now you got these mandatories, right, about to start hitting and things like that. So I had said earlier, if this fight don't happen in 2022, this fight probably not gonna happen. And I could think, and I think, with it coming out that Bud fighting Avenesian, and now with Stanionis saying that he's gonna push forward with his WBA mandatory, you know what I mean? We could I think we could pretty much close the shop on that. My thing with that, right, in the media, I feel like the media right now, they're going to try to keep hope alive, right? They're going to try to keep hope alive. They're going to keep buzz around the name. They're going to keep buzz around the fight happening. They kind of keep us intrigued, right? Because now everybody's saying, well, the fight could happen in February 2023. What's the likelihood, right, that Bud is going to fight in December, then come right back and fight in February, right? You know what I mean? You already got Earl saying that he's not going to be at 154 long, right? So I believe at this point, we pretty much just holding on to straws as far as Earl and Bud. What's really what's more realistic, right? And I know it's a little of a downer, right? But what's more realistic is just for us to focus on Earl versus Stanionis or Bud versus David Avenesian. I think that fight, has came and it has gone. I think we spent more than enough time, right? Years on years talking about who will win that fight, who fought it is, and whatnot. At this point, man, at this point, I'm just ready to see, you know, uh, I ain't gonna even say I'm ready to see Bud versus David Avenesian because I really ain't ready to see, that wasn't the fight that I was expecting. You know what I mean? It's real, like it's a bit of a letdown, right? We thinking we about to get one fight at the end of December, but we end up getting another. He said this duck bigger than Riddick Bowe, Duck and Lennox Lewis. Shout out my guy Omar Hamilton. Appreciate you sliding through this, John Omar. Glad you can make it, pimp. If y'all could, do your boy a favor. Smash that like button for your boy when you roll on in. We in this thing having a boxing conversation. You know what I mean? Team Stanionis has informed, the powers that be. They've informed everybody that they will be pushing the WBA mandatory, you know what I mean, for a shot at Errol Spence Jr. All right, so if Errol Spence Jr. is going to remain at 147, he would have to, honor his mandatory. So we very well could be getting a Stanionis fight next, in the space, right? In the space where we were right, we were hoping we would get Earl and Bud. Earl versus Bud. It's looking like we're about to get Bud versus David Avenesian, and it's looking like we're about to get Earl Spence versus Stanionis. You know what I mean? And I think if we really look at it, right, if we really look at that as a whole type deal, it's a bit of a letdown, right? It's a bit of a letdown, especially when we've had such a good year in boxing, right? We've had undisputed after undisputed, you know what I mean, unification after unification. It just would have been nice, man, you know what I mean, to get the biggest fight of the year at the end of the year. But right now, for me at least, this fight is feeling more like it's doing more bad right now than I think it is doing good type deal. But Stanionis and Earl Spence, if that is to happen, right? If that is to happen, I find it. If it is to happen, don't think it's gonna be very competitive, right? I really don't think it's gonna be very competitive. I think it's a fight, that has to happen because it's a mandatory, right? It's not a fight that we have to see, right? Type deal. Stanionis. I saw Stanionis fight Butiev in his last fight, right? Now a lot of that fight was 50-50, right? You had half the people picking Stanionis, half the people picking Butiev. Now I thought that Stanionis would win that fight, in which he did, but that fight was tough for Stanionis. He had to dig down deep in that fight. Right? And if you got to dig down deep against a guy like Buttiel, a guy like Earl Spence is going to hurt you, like, and he's going to hurt you bad, right? So I don't really think that fight is as competitive, which is why if I'm Earl Spence, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even mind if he didn't fight that fight at all. I think at 154 there's much more intriguing matchups than Spence versus Stanionis. I think he should be like, I think he should just let the belts go at this point and go ahead and move up to 154. I know that's probably what, Bud Crawford, that's probably what the people want, right? Just for him to forget about it and go and move up, right? Type deal. But at this point, man, I don't see. There's no reason for you to keep staying down there at 147, especially with Buzz. Buzz going to have to honor his mandatory. He just did his voluntary, right? So after this fight, Buzz will have to honor his mandatory pretty soon, unless he takes that role to undisputed, which he still can do. But I'm feeling like that fight ain't gonna happen. So best case scenario right now, if I'm Earl Spence, I'm just moving up to 154 and I'm moving on with my career. Omar said Spence moving up, bro. That Crawford fight was his last 147. Right, Omar. If I'm Earl Spence, that's exactly what I would do. It's exactly what I would do. You know what I mean? Especially with you having to fight Stanionis next. Stanionis is a good fighter, right? Not the fighter or the level that Earl Spence is on. What's good, Nolly Ray? Appreciate you sliding through this thing. Glad you can make a pimp. We in this thing having us a boxing conversation. Team Stanionis said that they was willing, to take step aside money for Undisputed to happen. But since Undisputed won't be happening, they're going to be officially pushing their WBA mandatory to face off against Errol Spence next. So, Spence, has a decision to make right now. He's either going to have to face off against the Stanionis, you know what I mean, or he's going to have to move up to 154. And I seen him, make the tweet yesterday that he's been at 147 his whole career, and it's no longer fun for him. He says it's no longer easy, or it's no longer fun for him to make that weight. I got 16 people in the building. If y'all in the building, y'all ain't smashed that like button for your boy, y'all do your boy a favor. Y'all smash that like button for your boy. You know what I mean? Team Stanionis said that they'll be pushing the WBA mandatory. You know what I mean? So this means that we could begin Stanionis versus Errol Spence. If Errol Spence decides to stay at the 147-pound division, then we most definitely would begin. You know what I mean? This fight with Stanionis, right? But in what's good, Nolly? But in the perfect world, right? I don't want to see Errol Spence fight Stanionis. I feel like I already know the outcome of that fight, right? Nobody ever woke up. Yeah, I mean, I watch it too, Nolly, right? But nobody ever woke up and said, "Man, I want to see Errol Spence fight." You know what I mean? Stanionis. If I had to pick between seeing Errol Spence fight Stanionis and Errol Spence fighting, a guy like Fondora at 54, or a guy like Erickson Lubin at 54, right? Or maybe a guy like, even a fight or rematch with Danny Garcia, you know what I mean, at 54, or seeing Errol Spence fight a guy like Fondora at 54, right? Or even him moving up to 54 and, taking a warm-up fight to the division, a guy like Angel Garcia, you know what I mean? Or a guy like, what's the guy that turned her? Brian Perella. You know what I mean? Something like that to get his feet wet. I think a fight with Stanionis be around the same level as those fights. You know what I mean? A guy like Erickson Lubin would be a bigger fight than a guy like, Stanionis. I just think, Stanionis' best career, best years is in front of him, right? Errol Spence, if he got a chance to fight for a title, Stanionis, if he got a chance to fight Errol Spence for a title, then hell yeah, you take it, right? But you know what I mean? This is a fight that I really could do without for Stanionis right now. He said, yeah, you're right. There's some good fights up there too. Yeah, especially with it being hard for Errol, to make this weight anyway. Errol said about a year and a half ago, he said actually when he signed that Manny Pacquiao fight, he said, I got 2 fights left. He said, I got 2 fights left, the WBA and the WBO belts. He said he wanted to get undisputed, you know what I mean? And he was leaving the division. You know what I mean? So Errol Spence ain't trying to, be at this, around this weight in the division too much longer. And I think since he's not going to get the Bud Crawford fight, because let's just be real, at this point, he's just not going to get it, right? I mean, we could hold on. We could hold on. I feel like at this point, we just holding on to false hope, right? Especially when you got Bud actually saying that, he didn't want it. Now you got him saying, right, that I'm taking this fight as a tune-up, but I still want to fight Errol Spence later, right? I just think at this point, it's a string-along contest, right? We're going to string you along. And let you think, you go get this fight while we hit you with the move and we just continue to fight these guys, that nobody really asking us to fight. You know what I mean? But on the whole, this fight with Stanionis and Errol Spence, if it was to happen, I most definitely would watch it. If Errol decided to stay at 147 one more time, then move up, I mean, of course, I will watch it. I also think that it's a better fight, a better style matchup than the Bud Crawford David Avanesian fight. David Avanesian has already been beat before, at least amongst Stanionis. He is an undefeated fighter. You know what I mean? He's never been stopped. David Avanesian has been stopped before, right? You know what I mean? I really don't even know where the hell that fight came from. As far as David Avanesian go, it's literally a voluntary fight. It's literally something that he just wanted to do, right? So I think this fight with Stanionis and Errol is a better fight than Avanesian and Bud, but I could do without both fights, especially when I was thinking that they will be facing off against each other, and not, these two uh fighters, Stanionis and Avanesian, that we got sitting in front of us. Another race said, I'm so disappointed with Bud. I'm disappointed in the whole situation, bro. Like, for real, like, the whole situation just kind of draining, bro. Especially when we thought that we was gonna get another thing, and now we get this thing, and then I feel like I've been misled, right? I kind of feel like I had been saying this fight wasn't gonna happen, but as everything is starting to unfold, I believe it's people out here who knew that the fight wasn't going to happen, right? And they didn't. I don't feel like they did a good enough job of being transparent with us and letting us know, you know what I mean, exactly what was going on. And that's the thing that I have been saying. I felt like, one side, the Terrence Crawford side, was always giving us, you know what I mean, the runaround. It was never any direct answers. There was never any direct answers, and now all of a sudden you fighting David Avanesian. My thing is, how could you have possibly been negotiating with Earl Spence, right? Or how could you have possibly been negotiating with Earl Spence in good faith, right? How could you have possibly been negotiating with Earl Spence in good faith if you already had this fight signed, sealed, and delivered? You know what I mean? You already had this fight signed, sealed, and delivered. So how could you ever have been negotiating with Earl Spence in good faith, right? But true enough, I'm kind of, I'm not gonna say I'm glad. I'm not saying when I say I'm glad that it happened, I'm not saying I'm glad we didn't get the fight, but I am glad, that we passed it, that we could finally get past it, right? We could finally get past the whole Earl and Bud thing. I've been kind of trying to prepare us, for this for a second. Y'all do your boy a favor, y'all smash that like button for your boy when you roll on in. I ain't gonna keep y'all in here too much longer. Just wanted to come here and, and drop this information on y'all, let y'all know that team of Stanionis said that they will be pushing that WBA mandatory officially, right? So if Earl Spence is going to stay at 147, more than likely he's going to have to fight Emmanuel Stanionis. You know what I mean? For his WBA mandatory. But I ain't gonna waste too much of y'all time, man. Skin the Hardaway Southern T. This ain't the past, this ain't the future, but this the present. That's how we rocking. And I'm out. Love.